So again, and keep in mind, like being able to tell the story, I'm capable of doing it. It's not a long story. It's not a complicated story. People again were coming, had to hunt and gather for their food. This process kept them constantly on the go. Eventually, they were able to through the agricultural revolution, they were able to gain, produce food and do it in one place and be able to produce a food surplus. This allowed them, time and space to do all types of other things. So very quickly they figured out like how to domesticate cows and chicken and use them as food as well. And all of these things made it where very quickly cities developed where places that were able to do that were gaining these kind of surpluses. People came from all across the world. Again, we're thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago in terms of human history. Um, Eventually, the Industrial Revolution came, and that made it where people could produce their goods even more quickly. This also led to a wider division in labor, where at first you have the hunters and gatherers in small groups, then you get to farmers, so you get a little bit more specialization. With the Industrial Revolution, you get a lot more specialization and a lot more people coming to these cities in a short amount of time, particularly after the Industrial Revolution, because if you continue to use the old techniques of farming, you were going to starve and not be as competitive with those who own machines. But this process meant that as more and more people came, there had to be some kind of planning and structure to, okay, how are we going to set this place up? Again, we just talked about before, right? The population of Chicago before 1850 was less than 100,000. By 1930, it was at 3.5 million. That's just a huge increase. So the same way, like if think of it this way, where we have 800 roughly students here at Allen, if all of a sudden in 3 years we got a plan for 10,000 students, which Dr. McNeely is hoping that we do. I hope that we do as well. But that would require all of us going to get a lot more sleepless nights. It'll be a good sleepless night, but we're going to have to do a whole bunch of planning. How we have again, is our cafeteria satisfactory to satisfy these 10,000 students? Where are we going to house these 10,000 students? You got to be shaking your head that hard, Stephen. Do we have enough teachers for these 10,000 students? Do we maybe need to increase our majors? What are we going to do about our, their public transportation? What about their healthcare costs? What about the mental health costs? So all these things have to be considered. We may have to add on a few more classrooms and build a few more buildings. The money that they will bring will allow some of these options. So, probably a few more sports teams. I know Dr. McNeely is one of the baseball team for a minute. We'll probably get our own sports complex. So all these things can just be impacted by your numbers increasing. So again, look, if y'all forget some of this stuff, this lecture is recorded. Go back and look at these first few minutes. What I just explained to y'all in those couple of minutes is the whole scope of the class. Don't make it any bigger or smaller than that. But the physical environment, it eventually puts, some influences and puts constraints on our behavior. So again, the last chapter talked about how when people came into this new environment that was so different from anything that humans had experienced, in terms of so many different types of people coming from being in a really small area. And as we talked about, it became a reflection of a society's values and culture. Values, again, what do you consider to be good and bad? What are the norms and traditions that are passed on in your society? In the early 20th century, again, because of places like Chicago and New York and DC, again, particularly after the Great Migration, but also immigrants coming over from Europe, that they have to figure out, okay, look, where are all these people finna live? How are we finna try and make sure that the city stays clean? How are we gonna educate them? Where are they gonna work? So a career that still exists today is the job of a city planner. And that job is exactly what it sounds like. I'm not gonna test you on names. I'm not gonna test you on names. But some of the first individuals that were really responsible for this included Daniel Burnham, City Beautiful Movement of Chicago, Ebenezer Howard, the Garden City, Le Corbusier, the Radiant City. This is dealing with Paris, France in particular. Because again, this is not just going on in America, this is going on in the Western world. Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, but also London, Paris, Munich. Those populations are increasing dramatically because, again, this is where the jobs are, Stephen. This is where the jobs are. If you want to work in a factory, you probably got to come to one of them cities. You don't need to speak English. You don't need to have no college degree. It don't matter who your parents were. So many people are coming in a short amount of time. Chicago, again, stands prominent in this text because, again, it was the first American shock city of the 20th century. We'll leave on this note for today. And it was a prototype of urban ecology, environment, that the environment's going to do things to you. So those New Yorkers, man, you move to New York and it just makes you a worse person. Oh my God, you see how mean and nasty they are. Well, Chicagoans are so violent and aggressive. Oh my God. So much like, again, Chicago is portrayed today as like, just this crazy, disorderly, chaotic place. This was true in the 19th century. And particularly the Haymarket bombing in 1876 was really important in this regard. So very shortly, you had all these workers coming to these big cities, Stephen. As we talked about before, the workers weren't always treated very well. In 1876 in Chicago, the workers protested. There was a bombing, a quote unquote terrorist attack, and it really freaked a lot of people out. They had the Pullman labor strike. Again, the workers there were really flexing their muscle, and the people in power were really freaked out by that. But also, again, we talked about, Charles, there was inadequate housing. You have a city that goes from 100,000 people to 3.5 million in a short amount of time. Again, the same way, if we get that level of students, Stephen, some of y'all gonna be full in a room in a dorm room, dog. Because we're gonna get that money the same way Chicago was, right? So we'll figure out where they're gonna live later on. Your dorms might be a little bit dirty. We don't have enough people. We have not hired enough people to clean up your dorms for you, child. Sorry, dog. The air quality, the ventilation may not be as good. Poor sewage systems. The toilet's gonna be overflowing, Stephen, and y'all just gonna have to figure that out for yourselves. Many believe that all these problems, Charles, were the result of an unplanned city. So those are the kind of things where, again, if the population of Allen increased and we didn't actually plan for it, it would create a lot of problems. You had all these people coming to Chicago, coming to New York, Philadelphia, Detroit. They hadn't adequately planned for it. On Wednesday, we'll begin to look at how they begin to do that. I hope to see some rough draft before the rough draft deadline is due. Continue to read the directions carefully in the chapters themselves, and I'll see you gentlemen on Wednesday afternoon. Have a great day.
You do the same.